Hey guys, it's Pastor Brett with today's daily Bible reading. As always, we encourage you to opt in to get these Bible readings and these videos delivered into your inbox every single day. Findcommunity.com/Bible reading. Today we're going to read from the book of Mark, and we're going to see Jesus' heart for those who can often be overlooked, those who can be left out, maybe the most vulnerable in his culture. And let's talk about what that means for us in our culture. So, Mark chapter 5, I'm going to read verses 35 through 43. Let's read together. While Jesus was still speaking, some people came from the house of Jairus, the synagogue leader. "Your daughter is dead. Why bother the teacher anymore?" Overhearing what they said, Jesus told him, "Don't be afraid, just believe." He did not let anyone follow him except for Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. When they came to the home of the synagogue leader, Jesus saw a commotion with people crying and wailing loudly. He went in and said to them, "Why all this commotion and wailing? The child is not dead, but asleep." They all laughed at him. After he put them all out, he took the child's father and mother and the disciples who were with him and went in where the child was. He took her by the hand and said, "Talitha kum," which means, "Little girl, I say to you, get up." Immediately the girl stood up and began to walk around. She was 12 years old, and at this they were completely astonished. He gave strict orders not to let anyone know about this, and told them to give her something to eat. Now, there are a lot of really rich angles we could use to look at this story, right? We have Jesus calling the synagogue leader to faith, right? Don't worry, just believe. Trust in me, in my ability to overcome even death. You have that element of faith. You have Jesus' intimacy here, where he says, "Little girl," right? I could just imagine the tenderness with which Jesus calls to her as he raises her back to life. You have the disciples in this moment and their journey of trying to trust Jesus when things seem unexpected and unbelievable. Or Jairus even, right? The synagogue leader. What might he have... There's a lot of angles that we could use to look at this text. But what I want us to see today is a little bit different. What I want us to see today, and as we prepare this week for continuing our series, What Made Jesus Mad, is Jesus' heart for the vulnerable, the overlooked, and those that didn't have positions of power in his culture. You see, children in the ancient world were often disregarded. Often were not worth the time of a leader, were not worth the time of any attention of any adults, right? I know we live in a very different culture and context today, and that might be hard for us to understand because we have a very youth-oriented culture, not only in terms of trends or what's popular, but, our family lives bend over backwards to make things happen for our kids. But in the ancient cultures, kids were often property. Kids were often not given kind of the dignity or respect of humanity until they can contribute something back to the family. Kids in the ancient world were often overlooked. And so we see actually Jesus' disciples, keeping the kids away from him, not that he wouldn't be burdened by their small needs. Kids couldn't do anything to pay Jesus back. They couldn't bring him any prestige in the world. They couldn't really do anything to earn his attention. He couldn't leverage it to get more power or fame or prestige in the world. And yet Jesus served children. Jesus, in this instance, comes down, goes out of his way. Even once Jairus' daughter is declared dead, he goes down and he gets involved. He stoops down and he grabs her by the hand. He says, "Little girl, get up." You see the intimacy, the care. Jesus cared about those who were often overlooked around him. And in fact, we find out throughout so many passages in the life of Jesus, it made him angry when people set up barriers to God based on someone's status in life. The way we might think about it today is based on someone's race, their color, their culture, their socioeconomics, any of those things that might make us think, well, we could look down on somebody because they're different. They don't have the same education. They're not from this neighborhood. They don't know how we do things here. And it can be easy for us to dismiss different people because of where they're from or what they're like. That is the kind of heart, that is the kind of attitude, though, that we find again and again that made Jesus angry. This is a form of shutting the door of heaven in the face of those who'd want to see him. And so part of our call here, I believe, as we look at this heartbeat in the life of Jesus to say, who is vulnerable? Who is overlooked and unseen in our culture? And are we paying attention? Now, the answer to that question is going to be different for each of us. Not only are we paying attention, but maybe who is overlooked and unseen around us. For some of us in our culture, we're probably on the opposite end of the spectrum as the ancient culture. We bend over backwards for our kids, but we are very quick to forget our elders. Maybe for us, the unseen and overlooked are caring for grandmas and grandpas in the nursing home, or someone who has no one to visit them in one of our nursing homes or retirement homes. Maybe the overlooked around us are those with physical or mental disabilities, and it's just easier not to pay attention or not to give them the kind of dignity or attention that we would anyone else. Maybe for you in your station of life, you're so beyond kids, you're so beyond that stage of life, thinking about the needs of a young family or maybe even of a single mother doesn't even cross your mind anymore. I don't say that to judge you or to judge any of us as we think about that, but the reality is in our culture, in each of our lives and spheres of influence and kind of the circles we run in, there are people to whom we are more naturally blind to. And following Jesus calls us to have eyes to those around us who maybe aren't naturally in our circles of attention. How can we care for those that how can we see those that we might more easily overlook? How can we care for those who might be more vulnerable in our culture, in our city, in our community? How can we share the heart of Jesus for those who are left behind by the culture? Jesus made time for little children. Jesus made time for those who couldn't do anything to pay him back. Jesus had a heart for those who were on the outside. Our call, our response as we see this passage and passages like it that we've been looking at this week is to say, Jesus, make us into that same kind of people. Make us into a people who see the unseen and love those who are vulnerable and maybe even overlooked in our culture. May we go first to love and to see the homeless near us, to love and see our neighbors who maybe have different needs than us, or even people right here at Community who might be easy for us not to see or even to avoid. You see, the love of God changes us, and it so changes us, so compels us, that we begin to see the unseen and love the overlooked. May we go out and find ways actively, intentionally to do that today. One small step, one small act that will put us in line with the heart of God for those around us, that we might love God and love people like Jesus. All right, amen, guys. Have a great week. Can't wait to see you on Sunday. Tuesday down, Tuesday to go. I think I'm in the Psalms here. Psalm 60. Oh, yeah, this.